Victoria Sterling stood on the marble terrace of her Manhattan penthouse, surveying the city that had made her one of the youngest tech billionaires in the world. At 28, she had inherited her father's software empire and expanded it beyond anyone's expectations. But success had come at the cost of genuine human connections. Her circle of friends consisted entirely of other wealthy socialites who measured worth in stock portfolios and designer. They gathered regularly for elaborate dinner parties, where conversation revolved around acquisitions, luxury vacations, and the latest gossip from their exclusive social circle. On this particular evening, Victoria was hosting one of these gatherings when the conversation turned to relationships. Her friend Cassandra, recently divorced from her third husband, was lamenting the difficulty of finding suitable men in their social class. "The problem with men today is they're either after our money or they're intimidated by our success," Cassandra declared, sipping her vintage champagne. "It's impossible to find someone who can handle a strong, independent woman." Victoria, who had never been married and rarely dated seriously, found herself defending the idea that love could transcend social boundaries. "I think you're all too picky," she said. "Love isn't about bank accounts or social status. A strong woman should be able to make any relationship work if she chooses to." Her statement was met with skeptical laughter from the group. Marcus Blackwood, heir to a real estate fortune, challenged her directly. "Easy to say when you've never tried it, Victoria. You live in an ivory tower. You wouldn't last a week with someone from the real world." The comment stung Victoria's pride. She had built her empire through determination and intelligence, not just inheritance, and she resented the implication that she was out of touch with reality. "I could marry anyone in this city and make it work," she declared boldly. "Social class, background, education, none of it matters if you're committed to making a relationship succeed." The room fell silent before erupting in amused chatter. Cassandra leaned forward with interest. "Are you suggesting a wager, darling?" Chapter 2. The challenge accepted. What started as a defensive statement quickly escalated into a formal bet when Victoria's pride wouldn't let her back down. The terms were simple but shocking. Victoria would marry someone completely outside her social circle within 1 month and stay married for a full year. If she succeeded, each of her friends would donate $1 million to her chosen charity. If she failed, she would pay each of them the same amount. The stakes were high enough to be meaningful even to their wealthy group. But Victoria was confident in her ability to succeed at anything she set her mind to. She had conquered the business world through sheer determination. How difficult could marriage be? Her friends were eager to see her fail, convinced that someone so accustomed to luxury and control could never adapt to a relationship with an ordinary person. They began suggesting candidates, each more ridiculous than the last. Street performers, fast food workers, taxi drivers. Victoria realized she needed to choose carefully. The person couldn't be someone easily impressed by wealth or looking for a financial opportunity. She needed someone with integrity who would enter the marriage for the right reasons, even if those reasons were initially practical rather than romantic. The answer came to her 3 days later when she was reviewing the renovation work being done on her penthouse. The project had been ongoing for weeks, and she had barely noticed the construction crew that came and went each day. But on this morning, she found herself observing Marcus Rodriguez, the lead handyman overseeing the installation of custom built-in shelving in her home office. He worked with quiet concentration, measuring twice and cutting once, taking pride in the precision of his craftsmanship. Marcus was in his early 30s, with calloused hands that spoke of years of honest work, and an easy smile he shared with his crew. He treated everyone with respect, from the youngest apprentice to the building's doorman, and Victoria noticed that people genuinely liked him. When she approached him about the renovation timeline, Marcus spoke to her directly and professionally, without the deference or intimidation she usually encountered. He wasn't trying to impress her or curry favor. He was simply doing his job well. In that moment, Victoria made her decision. Marcus Rodriguez would be her husband. Chapter 3. The proposal approaching Marcus with her unconventional proposal required more courage than Victoria had anticipated. She was accustomed to boardroom negotiations and high-stakes business deals, but asking a virtual stranger to marry her for practical reasons was entirely different territory. She waited until the end of the workday, when Marcus was packing up his tools. The other workers had already left, giving them privacy in the partially renovated space that would soon become her expanded home office. "Mr. Rodriguez, could I speak with you for a moment?" she asked, her usual confidence wavering slightly. Marcus looked up from his toolbox, surprised by her formal tone. Over the weeks of working in her home, their interactions had been brief but pleasant. He found her less intimidating yet expected, though he was always aware of the vast difference in their circumstances. Victoria struggled to find the right words. How did one propose a marriage of convenience to someone who had no idea such a thing was being considered? She decided on directness, the approach that had served her well in business. "I have an unusual proposition for you," she began. "I need to be married within the next 3 weeks, and I'd like to ask if you would consider marrying me." Marcus stared at her for a long moment, certain he had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" Victoria explained the situation as clinically as possible, outlining the bet, the timeline, and what she was offering in return. She would pay him a substantial sum, enough to start his own contracting or pursue any dreams he might have. The marriage would last exactly 1 year, after which they would divorce amicably. It would be purely a business arrangement, separate living spaces, no personal obligations beyond public appearance. You'd have complete freedom to live your life as you choose. Marcus listened in stunned silence. The offer was surreal, like something from a movie rather than real life. The money she was offering would indeed change his life, allowing him to expand beyond handyman work to the general contracting business he had always dreamed of starting. But something about the proposal troubled him. "Why me?" he asked finally. Chapter 4. Unexpected honesty. Victoria had prepared for questions about logistics, legalities, and compensation, but Marcus's simple question caught her off guard. Why had she chosen him? The honest answer was more complex than she wanted to admit. "You're honest," she said after a moment. "In the 3 weeks you've been working here, you've never tried to impress me or ask for favors. You do good work and treat people well. I need someone I can trust to honor the agreement." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding the practical reasoning, but he sensed there was more to her choice than she was revealing. "And you think I won't fall in love with you?" he asked with a slight smile. The question startled Victoria. She had considered the possibility that she might develop feelings for him, but it hadn't occurred to her that the attraction might be mutual. "I think we're both adult enough to maintain appropriate boundaries," she replied, though her voice lacked its usual certainty. Marcus was quiet for several minutes, considering the proposal from every angle. The money would allow him to provide better for his family, particularly his younger sister who was struggling to pay for nursing school. His mother's medical bills from her recent surgery had depleted his savings, and this opportunity could solve multiple problems at once. But Marcus had been raised with strong values about marriage and commitment. Even a temporary arrangement felt like a compromise of principles he held dear. "I need time to think about it," he said finally. Victoria nodded, respecting his need to consider such a life-changing decision. "Of course, but I do need an answer within a few days. The timeline is challenging." As Marcus gathered his tools and prepared to leave, he turned back to her. "Can I ask you something? Why is winning this bet so important to you?" Victoria hesitated, surprised by the perceptiveness of his question. "I don't like to lose," she said simply, but they both knew there was more to it than. After Marcus left, Victoria found herself thinking about his question. Why was this bet so important? Was it really about proving a point to her friends, or was it about proving something to herself? Chapter 5. The Decision. Marcus spent 3 sleepless nights considering Victoria's proposal. He discussed it with his sister Elena, the only family member he trusted with such a significant decision. Elena, wise beyond her 24 years, listened without judgment as he explained the situation. "The money would change everything for our family," Marcus admitted. "I could start my own business, help you finish nursing school, take care of Mama's medical bills, but it feels wrong to marry someone for money, even temporarily." Elena studied her brother's face carefully. "Is it just about the money, though? What do you think of her as a person?" Marcus had been asking himself the same question. Victoria Sterling was unlike anyone he had ever. Brilliant, driven, and successful beyond imagination. But he had also observed moments of vulnerability beneath her polished exterior, glimpses of loneliness that reminded him that wealth couldn't solve every problem. "She's not what I expected," he said honestly. "She treats the workers with respect, she's not condescending, and she seems genuinely lonely despite having everything money can buy." Elena smiled knowingly. "Maybe this arrangement would help both of you in ways you haven't considered." The next morning, Marcus called Victoria and asked to meet her for coffee to discuss the details. They chose a small cafe near the construction site where he was working, neutral territory that felt more comfortable than her penthouse. Victoria arrived precisely on time, dressed in a simple but expensive outfit that somehow made her look more approachable than her usual business attire. Marcus appreciated that she had made an effort to blend into the casual environment. "I've decided to accept your proposal," Marcus said without but I have some conditions of my own." Victoria leaned forward, interested. She had expected him to negotiate the financial terms, but his conditions were entirely different. "First, we treat each other with respect and honesty throughout this arrangement. Second, we both have the right to end the marriage early if it becomes genuinely harmful to either of us. And third, we make a real effort to make this work, even if it's temporary." Victoria was surprised by his conditions, particularly the last one. "What do you mean by make a real effort?" Marcus met her eyes directly. "I mean, we don't just go through the motions. If we're going to be married, even temporarily, we should try to understand each other, and maybe even become friends. Otherwise, what's the point?" Chapter 6. The Wedding. 3 weeks later, Victoria Sterling and Marcus Rodriguez stood before a justice of the peace in a simple ceremony that couldn't have been more different from the elaborate society weddings Victoria had attended throughout her life. Only Elena was present as a witness, along with Victoria's assistant who had handled the legal arrangement. Victoria wore an elegant but understated dress, while Marcus had chosen his best suit, not expensive, but well-fitted and appropriate. The ceremony was brief and businesslike, but when they exchanged rings, both felt the weight of the commitment they were making, even if it was temporary. The rings themselves told the story of their different world. Victoria's wedding band was a simple platinum design that cost more than Marcus made in several months. His ring was a basic gold band that he had purchased with his own money, insisting on contributing something meaningful to the arrangement. After the ceremony, they shared a quiet lunch at a restaurant that Elena had suggested, nice enough to feel special, but not so expensive that Marcus felt uncomfortable. Victoria found herself enjoying the relaxed atmosphere and Elena's warm personality. Elena had initially been skeptical of Victoria's motives, but she gradually warmed to her new sister-in-law as she observed Victoria's genuine efforts to connect. Victoria asked thoughtful questions about Elena's nursing studies and listened with real interest to her answers. "So what happens now?" Elena asked as they finished their meal. "Do you two just go back to your separate lives?" Victoria and Marcus exchanged glances, realizing they hadn't fully discussed the practical aspects of their married life. "We'll need to coordinate our schedules for public appearances," Victoria said. "And Marcus will need to move some of his belongings to my penthouse to make the living situation believable." Marcus nodded, though the thought of living in Victoria's luxurious home made him uncomfortable. His own apartment was modest but comfortable, and he worried about losing himself in her world of privilege and excess. "We'll figure it out as we go," he said diplomatically. "The important thing is that we both honor our commitment to make this work." As they parted ways after lunch, Victoria felt an unexpected flutter of nervousness. She had successfully completed the first phase of her bet, but now came the real challenge: living as a married couple for an entire year. Chapter 7: Adjusting to Married Life. The first month of their marriage was an exercise in careful navigation as Victoria and Marcus learned to share space while maintaining their agreed-upon boundaries. Marcus moved some of his belongings into the guest suite of Victoria's penthouse, creating the appearance of a shared home while preserving their independence. Victoria was surprised by how little Marcus's presence disrupted her routine. He was naturally neat and considerate, cleaning up after himself and respecting her work schedule. He left early each morning for his construction jobs and returned in the evening, often bringing dinner from local restaurants that introduced Victoria to cuisines she had never tried. Their first public appearance as a married couple was at a charity gala that Victoria was obligated to attend. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the opulent venue and the sea of designer gowns and expensive suits, but Victoria stayed close to him throughout the evening, making introductions and helping him navigate the social complexity. Marcus surprised himself by how well he handled the conversations with Victoria's wealthy acquaintances. His natural honesty and lack of pretension seemed to intrigue people who were accustomed to calculated social interactions. Several guests commented to Victoria about how refreshing and genuine her new husband seemed. Victoria watched Marcus throughout the evening with growing admiration. He didn't try to pretend to be someone he wasn't, but he also didn't let the wealth and status around him intimidate him. He treated everyone with the same respectful courtesy, from billionaire philanthropists to the serving staff. The evening's success gave them both confidence that they could handle the public aspects of their arrangement, but it was the private moments that began to create unexpected complications. Victoria found herself looking forward to Marcus's return each evening. Their dinner conversations, initially awkward and formal, gradually became more natural as they shared stories about their days and their vastly different background. Marcus learned about Victoria's childhood, spent largely with nannies and tutors, while her parents focused on building their business empire. Victoria learned about Marcus's close-knit family, his pride in his work, and his dreams of building something lasting with his own hands. Chapter 8: Cracks in the Facade. 2 months into their marriage, the carefully maintained boundaries between Victoria and Marcus began to blur in ways neither had anticipated. The change started with small gestures: Victoria bringing Marcus coffee in the morning, Marcus fixing a squeaky door that had annoyed her for months. Victoria's friends, particularly Cassandra, watched their interactions with growing skepticism during social events. They had expected to see signs of strain or artificiality in the relationship, but instead observed what appeared to be genuine affection and compatibility. "You're quite the actress, darling," Cassandra commented during a private moment at another charity function. "You almost have me convinced that this marriage is real." Victoria felt a flash of irritation at the comment, though she couldn't quite articulate why. "We're making it work," she replied carefully. "Isn't that what I said I could do?" But privately, Victoria was beginning to question her own motivations and feeling. She found herself genuinely caring about Marcus's well-being, worrying when he was late coming home from work, and feeling proud when others complimented his character and integrity. Marcus was experiencing his own confusion. He had entered the arrangement with clear boundaries and practical goals, but Victoria's world was changing in an unexpected way, not because of the luxury, though he appreciated the comfort, but because of Victoria herself. He saw past her polished exterior to the intelligent, driven woman who had built an empire through her own efforts. He witnessed her moments of vulnerability, her struggles with loneliness despite her success, and her genuine desire to use her wealth for positive purposes. The turning point came when Marcus's mother suffered a setback in her recovery from surgery. Victoria found him in the kitchen one evening, staring at his phone with obvious distress after receiving the call from Elena. "What's wrong?" she asked, her concern immediate and genuine. Marcus explained the situation, his worry evident despite his attempts to remain composed. Without hesitation, Victoria offered to arrange for his mother to see the best specialists in the city, to cover any medical expenses not handled by insurance. "You don't have to do that," Marcus protested. "That wasn't part of our agreement." Victoria looked at him with surprise. "This isn't about our agreement, Marcus. This is about your family needing help, and me being in a position to provide it." Chapter 9. Real feelings emerge. Victoria's immediate response to his family crisis revealed to Marcus that their relationship had evolved far beyond a business arrangement. Her offer of help came from genuine care, not obligation, and her insistence on accompanying him to the hospital showed a level of personal investment that surprised them both. At the hospital, Victoria witnessed Marcus with his family for the first time. She saw the deep love and respect they shared, the way they supported each other through difficulties, and the central role Marcus played as the family's protector and provider. Marcus's mother, Rosa, was initially intimidated by Victoria's obvious wealth and status, but Victoria's genuine concern for her health and her respectful treatment of the family gradually put Rosa at ease. Victoria asked thoughtful questions about Rosa's condition and listened carefully to the doctor's explanations. Elena observed the interaction between Victoria and Marcus with growing understanding. She saw how Victoria's presence calmed Marcus' anxiety, how naturally they worked together to navigate the medical bureaucracy, and how Victoria deferred to Marcus's decisions while offering her resources as support. "She loves you," Elena told Marcus privately. While Victoria was speaking with the doctors about treatment options, Marcus shook his head, though his denial lacked conviction. "It's not that simple. We have an arrangement. She's just being kind." "Marcus, I've seen kind. This is different, and you love her too, whether you want to admit it or not." The truth of Elena's words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Somewhere in the past few months, his feelings for Victoria had transformed from respect and friendship into something much deeper and more complicated. Victoria, meanwhile, was having her own revelations. Watching Marcus with his family showed her a different model of relationship than she had ever experienced. The Rodriguez family's love was unconditional and supportive, based on genuine care rather than social obligation or financial benefit. She realized that what she felt for Marcus wasn't just appreciation for his character or gratitude for his cooperation with their arrangement. She had fallen in love with him, his integrity, his kindness, his strength, and the way he made her want to be a better person. The recognition terrified her. Love had never been part of the plan, and she didn't know how to navigate feelings that made her vulnerable in ways her business success never had. Chapter 10. The Confession. The crisis with Marcus's mother created an intimacy between Victoria and Marcus that could no longer be ignored or explained away as friendship. They spent long hours at the hospital, supporting each other through the uncertainty and fear that comes with a loved one's serious illness. During one of these hospital vigils, as they sat in the quiet waiting room in the early hours of the morning, Victoria found herself speaking more honestly than she had in years. "I've never seen a family like yours," she admitted quietly. "The way you all care for each other, support each other. It's beautiful." Marcus looked at her with surprise. "What was your family like?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Successful," she said finally, "but not close. My parents loved me, but they showed it by providing opportunities and advantages. We weren't emotionally connected to your family. Is that why this bet was so important to you?" Marcus asked gently. "To prove that you could create the kind of connection you never had?" His insight caught Victoria off guard. She had been so focused on proving her friends wrong that she hadn't examined her deeper motivations. "Maybe," she admitted. "I've always been good at achieving goals, solving problems, building things. But relationships, I never learned how to do those well." Marcus reached for her hand, a gesture that had become natural between them over the past weeks. "You're learning now," he said softly. The simple touch and his gentle words broke down the last of Victoria's defenses. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. This isn't just an arrangement anymore, at least not for me. I've fallen in love with you." The confession hung in the air between them, changing everything. Marcus felt his heart race as he processed her words that echoed his own feelings but complicated everything about their situation. "Victoria," he began, but she held up her hand. "I know this wasn't part of our agreement. I know it makes everything more complicated, but I couldn't keep pretending that what I feel for you is just friendship or gratitude." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "It's not just you," he said quietly. "I love you too. I think I have for weeks, but I was afraid to admit it." Chapter 11. Navigating New Territory. The mutual confession of love should have been a moment of pure joy, but both Victoria and Marcus were acutely aware of the complications their feelings created. Their marriage had been built on a foundation of practical arrangement and clear boundary, and love changed everything about their dynamic. "What do we do now?" Victoria asked, her usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. "How do we handle this?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering their options. "We could end the arrangement early," he suggested, though the words felt wrong as soon as he spoke them. "If our feelings are real, we shouldn't need a bet to stay together." Victoria shook her head immediately. "That would mean I lose the bet, and more importantly, it would look like I'm running away from a challenge. I don't want our relationship to start with me failing at something I committed to." "Then we continue as we are," Marcus said. "But we acknowledge that this is real now. We're not just playing roles anymore." The shift in their relationship was immediate and profound. The careful distance they had maintained dissolved, replaced by the natural intimacy of two people in love. They began sharing meals more regularly, talking late into the evening, and finding excuses to spend time together beyond their public obligations. Victoria's friends noticed the change immediately. The affection between Victoria and Marcus was no longer performative, but genuine, and their interactions had the easy comfort of a couple who truly knew and cared for each other. Cassandra confronted Victoria directly at their next social gathering. "This has gone too far, Victoria. You're actually falling for this man, aren't you?" Victoria met her friend's accusatory gaze steadily. "Would that be such a terrible thing? He's a handyman, darling. What could you possibly have in common? What happens when the novelty wears off and you realize you've tied yourself to someone who can't keep up with your lifestyle?" The criticism stung because it echoed Victoria's own fears. Despite her love for Marcus, she worried about the practical challenges of their different backgrounds, and whether their relationship could survive in the real world beyond their temporary arrangement. Marcus, meanwhile, was dealing with his own doubts and the reactions of his co-workers and friends, who couldn't understand his relationship with someone so far outside their social circle. Chapter 12. The Test. 6 months into their marriage, Victoria and Marcus faced their first real test as a couple when Victoria's business faced a major crisis. A key client was threatening to pull out of a multi-million-dollar contract due to concerns about the company's direction, and Victoria was under enormous pressure to resolve the situation. The stress brought out the worst aspects of Victoria's personality, the controlling, perfectionist tendencies that had served her well in business, but could be destructive in personal relationships. She worked 18-hour days, snapped at everyone around her, and retreated into the cold, distant persona she had cultivated in the corporate world. Marcus watched this transformation with concern, recognizing that Victoria was reverting to old patterns of behavior when under pressure. He tried to offer support, but Victoria pushed him away, insisting that he couldn't understand the complexities of her business world. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said during one particularly heated argument. "When things get serious, we don't know how to support each other. We're from different worlds, Marcus." Maybe Cassandra was right. Marcus felt the sting of her words but refused to give up on their relationship. Instead of arguing back or withdrawing, he quietly continued to care for her in practical, ensuring she ate regular meals, maintaining their home, and being present without being intrusive. His steady support gradually broke through Victoria's defenses. She began to see that Marcus's different background wasn't a limitation, but a strength. His perspective, unclouded by corporate politics and ego, helped her see solutions she had. "What if you're approaching this wrong?" Marcus suggested as Victoria vented about the difficult client. "You're trying to convince them with numbers and projections, but maybe they need to trust you as a person first." Victoria initially dismissed his suggestion, but as she thought about it more, she realized he might be right. The client's concerns weren't really about her company's capability, but about whether they could trust her leadership during uncertain times. Taking Marcus's advice, Victoria changed her approach. Instead of formal presentations and data-heavy proposals, she invited the client's leadership team for a personal dinner, where they could get to know her as a person, not just a CEO. The strategy worked. The personal connection Victoria established led to renewed confidence in her leadership, and the contract was saved. More importantly, Victoria learned that Marcus's different perspective wasn't a weakness in their relationship, but one of its greatest strengths. Chapter 13. Forever After. As their one-year anniversary approached, Victoria and Marcus had to confront the reality that their temporary arrangement was coming to an end. According to their original agreement, they would divorce after exactly 12 months, and Victoria would have won her bet. But the thought of ending their marriage felt absurd to both of them. They had built something real and meaningful together, something that transcended the circumstances of how it began. "I don't want this to end," Victoria admitted, as they discussed their future. "Not because of the bet, but because I can't imagine my life without you." Marcus smiled, relief evident on his face. "I was hoping you'd say that. I love you, Victoria. Not your money or your lifestyle. I love who you are and who we are together." Victoria's friends were shocked when she announced that she and Marcus were staying married by choice, not obligation. Some, like Cassandra, never fully accepted the relationship, but others gradually came to see what Victoria had found in Marcus. The bet had been won, but Victoria donated the money she received to a scholarship fund for students from working-class families pursuing higher education. She wanted to honor the lesson Marcus had taught her about the value of different perspectives and backgrounds. Marcus used the money from their original arrangement to start his contracting business, but he also established a foundation that provided home repairs for elderly and disabled homeowners who couldn't afford professional services. His success in business was built on the same integrity and work ethic that had first attracted Victoria to him. Their marriage evolved into a true partnership, where Victoria's resources and business acumen combined with Marcus's practical wisdom and strong values. They learned to navigate their different backgrounds, using their contrasts as strengths rather than obstacles. Victoria discovered that love wasn't about finding someone who fit into her existing life, but about building a new life together that honored both of their backgrounds. Marcus taught her that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in relationships, integrity, and the positive impact you had on others. Years later, when people asked Victoria about the secret to their successful marriage, she would smile and say that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. A bet that started as a way to prove her superiority had instead taught her humility, and a marriage that began as a business arrangement had become the greatest love story of her life. Their story became proof that love could indeed transcend social boundaries, but only when both people were willing to grow, change, and see the world through each other's eyes. We want to thank all of you who have listened to this incredible story of unexpected love, personal transformation, and the power of seeing beyond social barriers. We'd love to know where in the world you're listening from, and how this story resonates with your own experiences of finding love in unexpected places. Please share in the comments what country or city you're from, and tell us if you've ever had moments where someone completely different from you changed your perspective on life. Your stories inspire us to continue sharing tales that celebrate the beautiful ways love can transform us when we're open to growth and change.